So I recently finished reviewing the Ryzen 3 1200 and 1300X, and they are great CPUs if you want to overclock them. And today we have a mini ITX build that won't cost too much more than a regular build, especially a cookie cutter build. And of course you get that small form factor, awesome performance, and I've even thrown in some extra options if you want to save even more cash. Happy days. Welcome back to Tech Yes City. This is Brian coming to you guys today with a mini ITX build, and we're using the Ragen Tech Metis, which is a $63 all aluminium constructed case. It actually includes a fan too, very small, very easy to work with, though it does have a few caveats. And we will talk about that a little bit later after we do some benchmarking and temperature tests. Though as for the other parts, we've got 8 GB of RAM from Crucial. This is their new 3200 RAM, and it costs around $100, though the good thing with Ryzen is the 3200 MHz XMP profiles work perfectly on both boards that I've tested here. So if you want to get the most performance out of your Ryzen chips, then this memory is certainly recommended. Though as for the graphics card, we're going with the GTX 1060 Mini. This is the 3 GB edition. They're actually coming back into stock and the prices aren't too ridiculous. The one that I've got here costs around about 225 USD. Though if you do want to save some money, of course you can go with the GTX 1050 Ti, a same mini edition. This will set you back around about $145. So if you don't need the performance out of the 1060, then you can save a bit of money and go with that 1050 Ti. Though as for the CPU, I just recently reviewed this. This is the Ryzen 3 1200, $109, includes a cooler, and the great thing is you can overclock these pretty high. Even in this mini ITX build today with restricted airflow, I managed to get it up to 3.9 gigahertz, which at these speeds it performs phenomenally well, as we'll see pretty soon. Though for the mini ITX motherboard on the Ryzen series, we're going with the B350 Fatality from ASRock. Great motherboard for the money, comes in around $115. You get included Wi-Fi as well, which is why I went with this board over the BioStar. And of course the ASRock BIOS is very easy to work with, it's very easy to overclock with, and I'll be doing my overclocking tutorial with this motherboard. And then for the storage, we're going with an MX300 from Crucial. This is a 575 gigabyte model, coming in around about 150 USD. Though if you do want to save money and you're on a strict budget, then you can get a 1 terabyte 7200 RPM small 2.5 inch hard disk drive for around about $56. So it's up to you. I have put in some options in the description if you want to save some money. And then for the last component in this build, we're going with a EVGA power supply for $30. We'll have ample amount of power to power the GTX 1060 and of course the Ryzen 3 1200 when both are overclocked. And with that, it is a full-sized ATX power supply. However, the case we're using today allows you to fit in a full-sized ATX power supply and still have ample room to work with. However, with that said, let's take a look at how this thing performs. And now with the CPU, I managed to get it up, as I said before, to 3.9 gigahertz on the core. The graphics card, I also managed to squeeze out an extra 100 megahertz on the core and about 350 megahertz on the memory. So with that said, roll those benchmarks. So first things first, with those benchmarks, you can see that this thing performed phenomenally well. And that's because I overclocked my gear. And I know I stress this a lot, but seriously guys, start overclocking your stuff. The performance gains are huge and you pay nothing for those performance gains. They're absolutely free. And with that, we saw Dota 2. I was playing a very heavy, intense multiplayer match. Absolutely no dips below 100 FPS at all times, even in big battles. I was really surprised. Great if you don't want any choking while you're trying to get those clutch plays. And then of course F1 2016, again, over 100 FPS, though it did dip down to the minimum of 80 FPS, but at all times it was ridiculously smooth. And then Fallout 4, I did break the VSync limit on this, and of course we were over 100 FPS at all times, 1080p, high settings, CSGO, again, over 200 FPS, great for those clutch plays if you want high smooth FPS. And the last game we tested, PuBG, of course, very popular title. People want to play this game all the time. It's one of the fastest growing games and it hasn't even been officially released yet. We were getting over 50 FPS at all times. However, one thing to remember with PuBG, and one thing that I've actually noticed after doing a lot of testing on it, is it does depend on the server you're on. If you're on a bad server, then you will get some really bad spikes. And this isn't the fault of your own hardware, it's actually the fault of the person hosting the server or the company hosting the server. Now it's time to talk a little bit more about the hardware itself. Usually in the past, if you go with the Mini ITX build, you usually end up paying a premium, especially over a cookie cutter build. However, in this case, or like all pun intended, the Radeon Tech Metis isn't that expensive, $63 case, and it allows you to use a full-sized ATX case, and of course the graphics cards, the minis, are usually the cheapest option. And of course, it's got ample room for a decent sized cooler, I believe up to 160mm, though the Wraith's Stealth that's included with the Ryzen 3 is plenty enough. However, with all the good parts aside, I mean, this case was very easy to work with, ample room to install things, it wasn't a problem at all. Some of the problems with this build, however, is the airflow in this case. The included side panel actually had to switch sides because it blocked airflow so much. And you may want to do this, you may even want to take off that clear side panel if you want the best airflow possible. However, I do notice a problem with temperatures, and that's why in my review I reviewed Ryzen 3 at 4 GHz, but in this case I had to downclock it to 3.9 GHz with 40 millivolts less. Otherwise it was just getting too hot to handle, the machine would switch off. Also, another problem with the Radeon Tech Metis is the feet included. Now, I've only traveled with this case once. I brought it from Japan to Australia, and I've already lost a foot on the bottom. I've actually had to go and super glue the one of the feet on the corners in the middle, so now it's got 3 feet. So if you want to travel with this case, you may want to rethink your options and get a different case that's a little bit more sturdier, especially when it comes to the included feet. However, with those two negatives aside, it is actually a really good case for the money. It's got an all-metal construction, includes a fan, and it's also very easy to work with. So I can recommend it, just don't go putting in too heavy hardware in there, like an 8-core Ryzen, for example, and a GTX 1070 Mini. I think you'll have too much of a heat problem on your hands, or on your desk. And of course, the last thing to talk about with this build is it came to around $800 with the 1060 and also the SSD. However, I did manage to drop it down to around about $580 if you wish to use cheaper memory, a GTX 1050 Ti, and also not an SSD, go with the 1TB hard drive. So I have put some options in there for you guys. Go check it out in the description below. But with current cryptocurrency mining prices sending graphics cards to insane levels, DDR4 memory being overpriced, it's actually not a bad time to build if you get the 3GB 1060, as I believe they're being phased out in terms of popularity for miners, and also things like the Ryzen 3, the SSDs and hard drives are bringing decent value to the table. So you've just got to pick and choose your parts, but you can still build a decent PC as of now. It's just I think that the 6GB 1060s and also the 8GB 1070s will be pretty popular for quite some time due to their VRAM buffers popularity for cryptocurrency mining, unfortunately. Anyway guys, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's mini ITX Ryzen build, and if you did, then be sure to hit that like button and let me know in the comments section below, would there be anything that you would swap around? Love reading your comments as always, and I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye. Man, I never get a break around here. It's like everything starts going by all morning. I've been doing some testing all morning, nothing. Then when I go to hit that record button, it's like boop. Hopefully I can get a break. Okay, welcome back to